everybody out to sea. Welcome. Gonna do part 2 of treatment adventures. Yesterday I did the little acoustic nutshell rhythm. So this was my attempt at Jerry Cantrell's solo. Of course I'm nothing close to his swagger, but hey, I've been trying. It's a lot of fun to play, right? Excuse me. Get my coffee going here. So when the battery died, I had just had the treatment failure through a Sundown Ranch. And so it's going to go on and get a little bit more esoteric from here. The next attempt I had was a unique one. So I knew the guys running the needle exchange in the U District, the harm reduction group that was, you know, giving out needles and everything you need to stay strung out. And I met a young woman at, you know, the needle exchange picnic talking about she detoxed at a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat. This place, 2 hours south of Seattle. You get on a waiting list. It's free. They give you a room. They feed you. And the only requirement of yourself is to shut your mouth and watch your breath and just try to meditate. She told me that she made it through a savage detox doing that. And while it was painful and ridiculous, the fact that it was quiet and, you know, she was just able to suffer through. She was like, some people could tell something was wrong, but I made it. So that always stuck in my head. And, you know, the white rapper out of Seattle, Macklemore, he has a rap song called Vipassana. It sounds like he went through that Vipassana retreat. And then I met someone else who did it, and they knew I'd been seeking and whatnot. They're like, you should try it. So after the Sundown treatment failed, and I relapsed with Larry and cracked my skull on a garbage can trying to mow a lawn, I was on and off, right? Like I was trying to stay clean. I'd make it a week or two and relapse, you know, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So I remembered that. I was like, oh yeah, what was up with that, you know, meditation retreat? So I got online, found it, and I was like, you know what, I've done everything else. I guess I'll try this. So they, you know, kind of do some screening the best they can. Someone talks to you on the phone after you put in your application to make sure you're not completely insane and that you can handle just shutting your mouth for 10 days. I, of course, didn't tell them anything about detoxing. And I was detoxing from buprenorphine. I was coming off of Suboxone. So not too long after the failed Sundown, I ended up back on Suboxone. But it was for like 2 months. And the physician I saw, she told me, when she heard my whole backstory, she's like, I think your opioid receptors are totally mangled and you've done irreparable damage. You're better off just staying on the Suboxone. In the past, when I was on Suboxone, I was usually pretty motivated and functional. You know, I could go about my day working, cooking, etc., etc. For some reason, this time around, I was just like bed rotting. You know, I couldn't wake up in the morning. I had no motivation. I was not feeling well. And I told the doctor this, and she's like, well, yeah, you know, you're just used to doing heroin. You're just kind of being spoiled. She was actually pretty mean to me. So I was sick of it, right? Like, I'd been on Suboxone. I'd gotten off of it. Didn't want to be on it. So, you know, luckily my dose wasn't that high. I wasn't taking more than like 4 milligrams a day, 2 to 4, because I knew I want to get off of this as soon as possible. So I sign up for the Vipassana meditation retreat. You know, I did another round of MAT, and here comes another alternative treatment, the 10-day silent Vipassana. So I get there. I stopped taking the Suboxone 3 days before I was scheduled to go there, because I know it takes about 3 days for you to really start going into withdrawal. And so I was getting pretty sweaty and sick by the time we were driving to this place in Alaska, rural area south of Seattle. I hadn't been eating much, right? So I was like, man, I need a real meal before I go to this place. So of all things, we go to this pub up the way and I eat this like huge bacon cheeseburger with like sauteed mushrooms and caramelized onions. It was delicious, but I'm coming off Suboxone, hypersensitive, I can smell everything. I forgot to bring a stick of deodorant with me. So for the first 4 days, I could smell this bacon cheeseburger coming out of me. My armpits are dripping sweat. And I was super self-conscious of the fact that like, oh man, everyone can smell me. And this was absolutely savage, man. Like, I was able to sit there and meditate. I was squirming a lot and I was not sleeping at night, like barely sleeping at all. Come day 8, so there was like this big group meditation hall. They give you a room with a roommate. There's a cafeteria where they feed you vegetarian meals. And the only time you're supposed to talk is if you have to talk to one of the like higher up meditators. You know, there's like a kind of a king and queen because they separate the men from the women. So if you have questions or concerns, you can schedule a time to go talk to one of these like advanced meditators, right? So on one occasion I talked to this guy and told him what I was going through. Turns out he also was a recovering addict, and he said he gave up 12-step and now he does the meditation. So I'm so sick the whole time, and I'm managing to just breathe and keep my mouth shut and make it through. Come day 8, I leave the big group hall and I go I break down. I have an emotional breakdown. I'm on the ground in a grassy field just crying. They sent someone over to check on me, like, you all right? It was like, yes and no, but thank you. But I needed that. You know what happened there? Something cracked in me to where I became capable of forgiveness. So that was really powerful, because prior to that, I knew what the word forgiveness meant, but I just couldn't find myself to be capable of forgiving my father, forgiving myself. So that was a very important thing I gained from that meditation retreat. It planted the seed of being able to forgive. That night, I finally slept. Day 8, total insomnia, had an emotional breakdown. I slept that night. So I leave this retreat and I'm emotionally raw. Like, I go to this cafe with my girlfriend and I saw a family with a group of young kids and they're all playing, having fun, and it like brought a tear to my eye, right? She saw me, she's like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I think so. I'm just really sensitive and emotional right now. So that was a really beneficial, difficult experience. And I'm not the only one who's done that. You know, I learned of the Vipassana retreat Detox through the needle exchange. Now, did it keep me clean long term? Unfortunately not. You know, I think I made it a couple, like 2 or 3 months. I was totally sober for 2 or 3 months after that. And I did attempt to do, you know, continue meditating. They tell you to meditate for an hour in the morning and an hour at night, which is a pretty tall task, right? You know, I did it for a while, and when I would actually do those hour sits, I'd like start hallucinating and stuff. It's probably from the HPPD. I still utilize my breath to this day. Now, it all gets a little blurry around this time. You know, we're talking 2017, 2018, 2019. I did so many different things, it gets a little bit blurry. I ended up doing a second 10-day Vipassana. This time I was coming off a kratom. You know, I was doing better, so I was only strung out on kratom, right? So same thing. I didn't take the kratom for 3 days leading up to the retreat, but this time I was volunteering in the kitchen. So I was helping make the vegetarian meals in the kitchen, because the food is the highlight of your stay there. You know, you're going through this painful meditation retreat, and you know, the meals are the highlight of the day. And we were doing pretty good vegetarian food. So I was meditating, cooking, made it through that pretty well. Now, being I was working in the kitchen, I wasn't totally silent, right? We were talking, and I met, I met this cap there that he was a straight baller. He had like five vials of liquid L in his trunk. He had like jars of super chronic. He had like a pound of mushrooms. He had a bunch of MDMA. At the meditation retreat, his trunk was like packed full of rave gear, right? So of course I stayed in touch with that guy. We ended up doing a bunch of business afterwards. So you meet some, interesting drug culture characters at these Vipassana retreats. So gosh, I did that second one, and I didn't stay clean for long after that. I ended up back up at the 11th floor at Larry's. It was around this time Larry was getting tired of shooting tar into his neck, so he got back on Suboxone. And one day he told me, he's like, you know what, Ian? I'm just waiting to die. And, I'd hear things like that, and it's just in one ear and out the other. It's like, oh, cool. You can sell me a gram of heroin, bro? Like, the guy was just suffering. And these are the types of people that I was around. On one hand, I'm hanging out with these, like, hippies studying natural medicine, going to meditation retreats. On the other hand, I'm in the depths of drug culture on Capitol Hill, downtown Seattle. So I'm like toggling between two different lives. So I end up, somewhere in there I get a Vivitrol shot. I managed to do a home detox, made it like 7 days without the buprenorphine. So I was like, I've never done Vivitrol, maybe I should try it. So, and this is the doctor who told me that, my opioid receptors were mangled, I should just stay on it. So, probably been on it for 2 months, quit taking it. She gave me the Vivitrol shot. Everything was fine for the first hour, and then I started going into precipitated withdrawal. Even though I took a UA, and it said there wasn't buprenorphine in my system, I guess there was still some deep in there. I've had like severe precipitated withdrawal before, which is the sickest I've ever been. This was more mild, but it was bad enough I took myself to the ER. They took mercy on me, gave me a few Ativan. I had a really weird reaction to the Vivitrol. The first time I tried to eat a banana after the Vivitrol shot, it was the most disgusting thing I've ever had in my life. It had this like chemical ammonia smell. I've talked to some physicians and other people about this. Never heard of anyone having this issue. So I don't know what the Vivitrol did, but I couldn't eat bananas for like 2 years afterwards. So that shot lasts 30-ish days. Can't do opiates. So, I'm just eating Adderall and Xanax up in Larry's loft. It was about day 32. I tried to do some tar. It still didn't work very well, but a week later it was working just fine. So, about 2018, I throw in the towel again. Things are getting wild over at Larry's. I'm watching people have these terrible MRSA sores. I'm starting to get shady MRSA sores. I got permanent scars all over my body from copping the MRSA. I was also swimming in South Lake Union in Seattle, giving stand-up paddleboard lessons. It's a dirty lake, so I think it may have come from that. But there were also people in the Seattle Housing Authority building that had terrible MRSA scars. So, that was fun, and I never had to deal with that when I was younger. So I'm getting grimier and grimier. And I throw in the towel and just get back on the Suboxone. This time I actually got a really nice doctor, very compassionate, and I got a therapist too. And the Medicaid in Seattle at this time was great. It was paying for my Suboxone, it paid for the therapist. I was going to the therapist like twice a week. I started working in restaurants, worked at this nice Italian restaurant on Capitol Hill, ended up at this pizza joint in West Seattle, Supreme. It was a lot of fun, so I was stable and maintained on the Suboxone, But every time I've been on Suboxone, in the back of my head, I just want to get off of it. And I'm constantly planning, like, how am I going to get off of this? Because I know how painful it is, and it's kind of started to seem like it's impossible. So, what else did I do? Yeah, so I get on the subs 2018. 2019, my wife and I leave Seattle. We're living in White Center, South Seattle. It's super ghetto. I just gotta meander a few blocks down the road. There's street dope, ghetto neighborhood. Seattle's changed. It's not what it once was. We're getting sick of it. You know, driving up I-5 to go to work, and it's just sprawling narcotic tent encampments. You know, crime is increasing. It's like, it costs a lot to live here. We don't want to deal with this. And I came to learn that, like, that environment was not conducive to me getting clean. You know, I kept trying and trying and trying. And I just kept failing because I couldn't escape it. It was just everywhere. I couldn't take a bus through town without seeing somebody who has dope, someone offering me dope. I didn't want to do it. But as I heard, you know, one YouTuber, rest in peace, Ryan Leone, he talked about relapsing. He said it was like the Ouija board, almost like he didn't even have any self-will in how he moved or what he did. It was like a Ouija board was moving him, you know, to the drugs. And like 3rd and Pike, downtown Seattle, Broadway and Denny, it's almost like these places are just portals of the devil. Like, it's just this magnetic portal to darkness. 1 second you're in just everyday real world doing okay. The next second you find yourself lost in this portal of the devil. You know, I do think it's like there's, and these places go on and on for years and years. Cops can sweep it out. 3rd and Pike has always been there. You know, it's like these magnetic dark pockets of hell that pull you in. But I digress. So, come 2019, we've left Seattle. We're living out in a very rural area off the Kitsap Peninsula. A little town called Hansville. The closest small town is Poulsbo. And so it's peaceful. You know, I'm a ferry ride away from Seattle. I want to be clean, and we've decided that, like, we're going to leave Seattle. We're done with it here. So I taper off the Suboxone and attempt the home detox. My doctor gave me a little bit of Klonopin. I had a couple other meds. That only lasted like the first 7 days. By day 8 and 9, I start getting unstable, losing my mind. I call my therapist. I talk to her. And I told her that I felt like a ghost. That's what I told her. I was like, I don't even feel human anymore. I feel like a ghost. That scared her, so she told me to go to the ER. Take the ferry over to the hospital and tell them I'm having a bad reaction to a detox. Well, they tried to give me some other garbage psych med, and it like made things worse. So I go to the ER. They take mercy on me. Get a fax from the therapist saying, yeah, he can use some more Klonopin. Get a bottle of Klonopin. That helped. So I actually managed to detox off the subs early 2019. I think it was January 11th, 2019. I stopped taking the Suboxone. And we left Seattle with a U-Haul heading south to Arizona like a month after that. Now, this is when I start dabbling with the kratom a little bit. It's like, oh, you know, I'm still sick, withdrawing from the buprenorphine. I want just a little bit of energy to pack, get some tasks done. A little bit of kratom. You know, I found this shady porn shop with like old VHS porn videos, dildos and whatnot in Poulsbo. This was, if I was driving from Hansville back to Seattle, I'd pass through there. They had jars of kratom. So I'm going to the shady sex shop, buying some kratom. So I detoxed from the subs, but I'm starting to let the kratom in a little bit, and that's continued to haunt me to this day. The last time I tried to cop heroin on the street in Seattle, it was the day before we were scheduled to leave town and start driving south. And so, you know, I tell my wife, well, I gotta go into Seattle to, you know, say bye to some people. I go down to the street in White Center where I had a couple street people that were trustworthy, you know, they'd sell me good pieces of dope. I get down there, nobody I recognize. But there's this one dude, this like kind of shady Central American dude, looks like a gangbanger, and no one else is around, so it's like, oh man, you know, I should know better. But I asked this guy, hey man, you can get some brown? And he's like, oh yeah, you just gotta come with me down this way. Now this is like a shady area, White Center in South Seattle. There's a lot of Cambodian gangs, a lot of African gangs, a lot of Latino gangs. It's a gang-ridden area, and it's dangerous, especially when you don't know the people you're messing with. So dude takes me to this shady house, and I can tell right off the bat, this is a bad scene, you know. And they seem a lot more methed out to me. They're not gouted out on heroin. These guys are like shifting eyes, you know, all irrational, arguing about a pair of shoes. So, you know, I do the thing that you're never supposed to do. Front of my $20. He has me wait on the front porch of this house, and there's like this big Central American dude that's like running in and out of the house. The dude who I met, who took me to the house, this crazy dude there took him and like threw him into the wall. Right then and there, I should have known. Get up and skedaddle. But of course, I'm hoping that there's a piece of dope, right? Final hurrah. So I'm sitting there on the stoop, and from out of nowhere, this guy blasts me in the back of the head, man. Like, he hit me hard. It rung my bell. Almost got knocked out. Like, I fell to the side. I had to stumble to stay on my feet. And, you know, as soon as I had my bearings, I started just running away from there. So that's what I get trying to cop dope on the street one final time. I felt like that was a good, a proper goodbye message from Seattle. You know, here's a good sock to the head, you little fucker. You're done with the dope. I thought he broke my jaw, man. There was like this clicking in my jaw. He hit me really hard. He blasted me from the back, and he was like a big meth freak. So we end up in Arizona. You know, I find the smoke shop. They got kratom there. I'm on and off the kratom. In and out of AA meetings. You know, AA meetings never really worked for me. It was the Oxford House that worked for me back in the day, not the AA meetings. But I'm trying. I'm getting jobs, working in kitchens. We end up moving around a whole lot. 2020 comes along. We're living in Oceanside, California. COVID arrives. And I'm working in a kitchen. It's a stressful kitchen. And terrified, man. Terrified. I'm on the kratom. And with the fear and the uncertainty of COVID, I start having some relapses on street drugs. And at this point, you know, there's this homeless camp along Oceanside Boulevard that was like an open-air drug market. Excuse me, I don't know what this cough is. There's still the tar, and it's good quality tar, but this is when the powder fentanyl's starting to show up. So I had a couple, you know, little fentanyl overdoses, and that's when I threw in the towel and said, okay, I'm not trying to die on fentanyl out here. For crying out loud, I managed to get off the subs, you know, struggling on the kratom, and now I'm starting to blow it and thinking about relapsing because I'm back in an environment where it's easy to get drugs. So, got back on MAT. There was this telehealth program called Work It, and they prescribed me 3 8-milligram buprenorphine strips a day. Maxed me out. And I told them I was taking 30 grams of kratom a day. They gave me 24 milligrams of buprenorphine a day for a 30-gram kratom habit. Now, I'd never been prescribed that much Suboxone, and I knew I didn't need that much. Like, you don't need that much. But, you know, just the fear of COVID, like, is this going to be the day I die, you know, or get it and give it to my wife or whatever, you know? So I start taking more and more Suboxone to cope with the fear and uncertainty. And I stayed on that pretty consistently for about 2 years. Now we come around to 2023, and I decide that it's time to get off the Suboxone. You know, COVID has receded, not quite so much fear there. I want to be clean, I want off. But I'd been taking a lot more buprenorphine than I'd ever taken before. I tried to do a home detox, and about 70 hours in, my arms are shaking violently. I'd never been this sick off of buprenorphine before. So I knew, okay, I've been taking too much, I gotta keep tapering. And then, you know, that was in like 2022 or something. Now, getting more recent, 2023. I'm up by the Kentucky border in Tennessee. I know I want to get off the buprenorphine. I've tapered down to like 2 milligrams a day. So I find a shady psychiatrist, tell him, yeah, I'm on buprenorphine, I want off, I'm looking for a little help. Can you prescribe me some Klonopin to help me get off of the subs? And he's like, yeah, sounds like a deal. So I get a bottle of Klonopin, I'm on the subs. The first 3 days I have the Klonopin, I'm still taking like a milligram of Suboxone. Day 4 comes around, it's like, all right, time to stop. You know, I'm 3 sheets to the wind on Klonopin, taking more than I should be, and I have no help. You know, no one, I'm quietly trying to detox. You know, my wife is in the house, I'm just hiding in a room and trying to function the best I can. I'm sick, I'm in withdrawal, and Klonopin has me making bad decisions. I end up at this shady overpass by I-65 in Nashville and manage to get some fent and some ice. And, you know, I had a couple little overdoses coming to, like, on the bathroom floor. It's like, okay, bad idea. I can't just get a bottle of Klonopin and detox from subs. And that's when I knew I need some real help, man. I've got to go to treatment. So my third and hopefully final traditional inpatient treatment center, I entered on December 1st, 2023. Now, I had stopped taking the Suboxone about 10 days leading up to the day I was scheduled to go, and replaced it with kratom. I ordered a kilo of kratom, and I had them put a bunch of extract in there, and this stuff was strong, man, like too strong. I'd take a teaspoon of it, and it was giving me like wobbles and making me kind of see double. And I mean, I'm coming off of buprenorphine, and this stuff was hitting me that hard, but I could still feel like the Suboxone withdrawal, you know, because the kratom only lasts like a couple hours, right? So I get to Cumberland Heights Treatment Center in Central Tennessee, and it was very rare that they had people there specifically to detox from buprenorphine, from Suboxone, because the vast majority of dudes who end up there on opiates, they just put you on Suboxone, which is so ridiculous to me, because it's like you're going 30 grand in the hole to go to an inpatient treatment center to have them put you on Suboxone. It's like you don't even need the treatment center. You can just go to a Suboxone provider and get the Suboxone. So some of these guys there that have been put on the Suboxone, they heard that like, oh man, there's this dude here detoxing from Suboxone and he's having a rough time. You know, I'm stumbling around the treatment center just crying in so much pain, not sleeping. You know, I got a Klonopin patch, they're giving me some garbage psych meds. I was in rough shape, man. Just liquid fire diarrhea, stumbling around, totally out of my mind, just crying. But I didn't care, you know, it's like, this is what I'm here for. In the first couple days there, they tried to keep giving me the Suboxone. And I was like, no, I can take Suboxone all on my own. I'm not doing that. So I made it through that 30-day program and got off the Suboxone. Hallelujah. You know, I get out on New Year's Eve 2023 and I am completely sober for the first time in quite a long time. No cannabis, no nothing. Now, you know, as I've talked about in a couple other videos, a wrench got thrown into those works where a month after getting out of there, I had major oral surgery. You know, had vast majority of my teeth pulled, really painful, got a couple implant plugs in, went into substantial debt, and they gave me a bottle of Vicodins, and it helped with the pain, but just being able to sleep and get a breather was really attractive. I ended up back on the kratom. So 2023 was my last, you know, treatment, and it was the third and final inpatient. And you know, about inpatient treatment, Sundown and Cumberland Heights, they were both totally 12-step oriented. They just shoved 12-step down your throat, and both of those treatment centers essentially failed me. In the last one, Cumberland Heights, they straight told us that like only 5% of you are actually going to stay sober. So at least they were honest. But it was the most ghetto treatment center, Thunderbird, and it was 90 days that got me clean for a substantial period of time and really gave me the help I needed. So when it comes to treatment centers, you know, I feel like the most ghetto bare bones ones are maybe going to be the most effective. You know, take your time. 30 days is not enough, for one. You know, 30-day program for me coming off of buprenorphine, I was still totally in withdrawal leaving the place. Buprenorphine withdrawal lasts a long time. I've been off it for almost 2 years now, and I can tell I'm still healing. You know, I think it messes up your adrenal system. It rotted out. It contributed to my dental rot, and I'm in the process of, you know, I managed to piggyback on this class action lawsuit regarding Suboxone's dental damage, and that's actually making progress. You know, I'm not counting on it, but it would be really nice if I could get some help getting dentures and deal with some of this dental debt. So man, a lifetime of addiction and treatment, and you know, I've had some successes, I've had some failures. You know, I guess the Ibogaine, the first flood, it nearly killed me, but I was opiate free for 3 years after that. There's a synthetic analog of Ibogaine known as 18-MC, or 18-methoxycoronaridine, and it's been designed to eliminate all the risks of Ibogaine, but keep the anti-addictive properties. So I don't know what's going on with that. Last I heard, the human trials were in Brazil. You know, we need some new medicines out here, right? Like, I feel like we're still in the Stone Ages as far as treating addiction goes. And, you know, we still know so little about what addiction really is. You know, it seems to really be tied to our motivation, you know, in sense of accomplishment and well-being. You know, right now I'm trying to retrain my brain to do new things, because that's really what it takes. You know, you got to start doing something new to leave this thing behind. And it's going to be a part of me forever. It's a part of my story. It's a part of my life. But, you know, even though I'm still struggling with the kratom, it could be a lot worse. And I'm in the process of getting off of that once and for all. I just got a gym membership. Just trying to do some new things, you know, to keep myself as healthy as possible. But, you know, if you got any crazy treatment stories, drop them in the comments. If, just want to say what's up. I appreciate it. So thanks for watching. Much love, everybody.